What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys with a fantasy football video. And this one I'm going to be going over 5 wide receivers I think are super safe to draft in fantasy football drafts right now. These are guys that I all expect to pretty reliably perform at or above their ADP. Guys that I think you can draft and pretty much lock them in every single week and assume that you're going to get pretty solid production, and guys that I think are really pretty much bust proof. Obviously, there's a time in your drafts to play it safe and a time to really shoot for the stars here, but I think it's always good to understand which guys you can play it safe with and which guys have that higher range of outcomes. So it's good to understand how you want to go about building your roster. You obviously want a mix of low ceiling and high floor guys, and then some guys with really high ceilings and lower floors just to give you that upside. So it's good to understand which players offer that mix, and I think this video will help you guys with that. I've also put out videos outlining some of the safest wide receiver or safest running backs and quarterbacks. If you guys want to go watch those, I highly recommend you do that as well. I'll be finishing the series up with a tight end video, and I'll also be sure to get you guys some of the higher upside players as well. I might try and condense that into more than just, or into a single video, maybe 2 videos rather than doing one for each position, because it gets kind of lengthy doing all of these, and I think that you guys would rather see some other content. So still fun making these videos. I want to make sure I get you all that information, really help you guys understand what you need to do going into your draft season. So it's been a lot of fun making this, and yeah, let's just get into the first wide receiver here. So starting us off here, I think the safest draft pick you can make at the wide receiver position right now is Oman Ross St. Brown. He's just one of the safest picks for me, given how important he is to the Lions offense. He's going to see a just healthy dose of targets throughout the course of the season. He's got a legitimate shot to see 10 plus targets a game. Honestly, 200 targets this season is it's possible for him. Obviously, that'd be really insane, but I think he's one of the few players in the NFL that could see that kind of target share at a spike season. He's currently being drafted as a wide receiver 9, despite finishing as the wide receiver 8 last season, and there being a few games in there where he played less than 50% of snaps due to injury. If you take his fantasy points per game in terms of games that he's played over 50% of the snaps, he would average about 20.8 fantasy points per game. That would put him in line to be like the wide receiver 3 overall. So even though I don't really think he can finish the wide receiver 3, I just don't think he's got that kind of upside because he's not a very explosive player. He's not going to be the kind of guy that you're going to see catching many 50, 60-yard touchdowns this season. He's a good enough player that he's going to catch probably 120, 130 passes this season, probably have over 1,200 yards, probably score 6 touchdowns as well. And if he gets lucky in the touchdown department, he could easily be a top 5 guy. This offense is just going to run through Amon Ra and the 2 running backs. Jameson Williams suspended for the first 6 weeks. So for at least the first 6 weeks, Amon Ra is going to be a lock to really just be the focal point of this offense. This team's defense is not great as well. They're going to give up a lot of points. They're going to have to really air it out and put up points if they want to win games, and Amon Ra is going to be a huge part of that. So Amon Ra is just one of the safest wide receiver ones you can draft. You're getting him at like the middle of the second round right now, and I think he's just a really great pick to be making there. Up next, I've got Tyler Lockett, another guy who I think is just a rock-solid draft pick in drafts right now. He just continues to finish the top 15 wide receiver in fantasy. He's done it 4 years straight, and honestly, I think he's got a legitimate shot to do it again this season. Obviously, the Seahawks drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round this season does limit his upside. I do still expect Tyler Lockett to operate as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense, with JSN mostly operating out of the slot. This is going to be a team that will probably run a lot more 3 wide receiver sets this season, especially now, given that the running backs are banged up. They'll probably want to lean on Geno in this passing game, and honestly, Lockett, he's got a legitimate shot to be the number 1 wide receiver in this offense. He finished ahead of DK Metcalf in fantasy production last season. He's just a really good player. I think that all 3 of these guys are going to have good weeks, but JSN's likely going to operate as just a really talented wide receiver 3 for this team. DK Metcalf will probably be the number 1. Lockett will probably be the number 2, but Lockett's got a legitimate shot to be a top 24 guy again this season. I've got him ranked inside my top 20, and he's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 28. That's just way too low for me. I think he's going to be an easy wide receiver 2 guy that you can play any single week, and honestly, I think he's just a really rock-solid pick and a guy that you're going to be really glad you have on your roster this season. Next up, I've got Christian Kirk, another guy who I think is being overlooked in drafts this season. I think people are just overly concerned with the emergence of Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville. I personally am also projecting Calvin Ridley to finish as the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, but I don't think that necessarily means bad things are coming for Christian Kirk. The way I have it projected, Calvin Ridley is going to be the clear number 1 in this offense, and Christian Kirk still stats out to be a wide receiver 22. He also finished as a wide receiver 1 last season, showing that he does truly have that upside. He's got a really good chemistry with Trevor Lawrence, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to take a huge step forward this season, so there'll be plenty of room in this offense for multiple wide receivers to succeed. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 30. That's just way too low for me. I think I've got him as a really comfortable low-end wide receiver 2 this season, guy that could definitely squeak his way into the top 20 at the position, and if he does that, he's just going to be rock solid, a guy that I don't really see a world where he finishes outside the top 30 just because he's going to have too much volume for him. He's too good of a player. He's going to catch too many passes. He's going to be a super safe draft pick, and honestly, we've seen that he's got top 15 upside even because he did that last year, and we don't really know exactly what's going to happen with Calvin Ridley, so I think the floor is super high for Christian Kirk, and I think he's even got some sneaky upside that a lot of people are overlooking. Up next here, I've got Deontay Johnson. He's just a volume king. He's going to be a guy that's going to see 150-plus targets this season, and he's just going to catch a ton of passes. Obviously, Pickett was horrendous last season, and Johnson somehow scored 0 touchdowns, which was just historically unlucky given the amount of targets and even end zone targets he had last season. Despite all of that, he still finished the wide receiver 39 in fantasy points per game, and he's being drafted as a wide receiver 33 right now. I don't think there's any way he finishes below where he finished last season, given that we should expect some sort of touchdown regression for him. I'd be shocked to see him finish with less than 5 passing or receiving touchdowns this season. If he gets to that 5 receiving touchdown number, he can easily squeak inside the top 30. I don't really think he can be a top 15 guy this season, just because I'm not a really huge believer in Kenny Pickett. I don't think this offense is going to be anything better than maybe middle of the pack at best, but with all the volume he's going to receive, he should easily be the number two wide receiver, a guy that should finish around the wide receiver 24, 25 this season. And given that he's being drafted as a wide receiver 33, I think he's going to be a really nice value in drafts. He's going to be a guy that you can play every single week, and a guy that's just not going to let you down. So I think Deontay's a guy that I'm comfortable drafting. I do tend to find myself drafting some other guys with more upside around where he's being drafted, but I think that if you really just want to take a really safe shot at a wide receiver 2, I think Deontay Johnson is a perfectly good draft pick to be making right now. And last but not least, I think another really safe draft pick you can make right now is Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks just continues to prove that he's a really good NFL wide receiver and to prove that he can adapt to new NFL rosters. He's been traded what feels like 10 times at this point in his career. He's honestly been successful in several different situations, being successful with the Rams, the Saints, the Patriots, even the Texans, and now moving over to the Dallas Cowboys. He should just see really favorable coverage this season with CeeDee Lamb on the other side. The Cowboys are still going to have to pass the ball quite a bit to move this offense. They only have Tony Pollard really as a proven commodity at the running back position, so I don't think they can be as run heavy as they're leading on they want to be. He's just going to be a really efficient wide receiver as well. He's always got a really nice yards per catch. He's a guy that can really succeed down the field as well, and he's just going to be a really useful player that you can play this season is like your wide receiver 3. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 39. I think he can easily finish as a top 30 guy this season. He's just a guy that where he's being drafted I think is too low. He's honestly got top 24 potential if this offense really explodes, and he's just too good to be drafted around the wide receiver 40 range. So I like drafting Brandon Cooks quite a bit. He's really cheap. I think he's going to be a guy that you can play every single week this year. So that'll do it for the 5 safest wide receivers that you can draft in fantasy football drafts right now. Up next, I'll be doing a video where I go over everything that's happened this offseason and in training camp that I think you need to know before your NFL drafts or before your fantasy football drafts. I think this will be really useful for a lot of you guys that are maybe just sort of starting to pay attention to football again this season. A lot of you guys maybe sort of took the offseason off like maybe normal, healthy people. I don't really do that. Obviously, I stayed in touch with everything throughout the whole course of the offseason, super in tune, really want to sort of summarize what happened with every single team and really give you guys a nice synopsis of what you need to know going into your fantasy football drafts so that there's not any knowledge or transactions that happened over the course of the offseason that you guys aren't aware of. If you did like this video, I really would appreciate it if you just give it a thumbs up on the YouTube channel. It really helps with the algorithm, really helps know that I'm doing a good job, helps know that you guys are liking the content. If it's your first time here, please do take the time to subscribe to the channel. We're at like 570 subscribers. I'd love to hit 1,000 before the start of the NFL season. It's going to be a tough mark to hit, but I think we really can do it. It's been really awesome seeing the channel grow so much, and it's been super fun. I will also note that there's a new option to join the channel as a member. Costs about $1, I think. Super cheap. We'll just give you priority responses to comments, give you a nice little icon next to your name in the comments as well. And I'll be doing some live streams and stuff during the course of the season, the answer to start sits and all that. And obviously you'd have the opportunity to participate in members only chats and stuff there as well if we get to be popular enough where that starts filling up. So just fun, good way you can show that you can support the channel, totally optional, no pressure at all. I don't want you guys to feel like you got to do that. Obviously it's super cheap. I want to be giving you guys as much free content as well. So super fun doing all this and really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.